that's just how it is. If a woman can't read you, and people with Asperger's don't just have trouble reading other people's facial cues and body language, they also don't project the right body language and facial cues and voice and right things to say. If a woman has gets this impression that you're more like this human cipher or the cyborg, or just somebody that she doesn't get, if she's uncomfortable, she'll probably not risk sitting down with you and telling you why she decides not to pursue things further, because she's afraid of that blowback, like I already described. The sitting down and the abrupt, where she breaks up with you and then has to endure the reaction that's often intensely negative and stressful, or this ghosting thing where you maybe only bit by bit realize she's doesn't want anything to do with you, don't get an explanation. So what makes this especially difficult is that to you didn't pick up on cues or anything that maybe turned her off or made her really second guess your relationship. So you didn't pick up on those cues. So for you everything went perfect, and then suddenly, maybe after a few dates, she suddenly doesn't want to have anything to do with you. And I think an important thing to understand is that, chances are she was a bit confused, because there were a lot of great things about you. She was going on dates with you because she really cared and she thought there was potential there. And then there were these like off-putting things. And chances are, and I think especially when you try to get to know a guy with Asperger's, then sometimes it's like so weird that you almost like, the date might be going well, or you might even have enjoyed it, but then you go home and you sit back and you go like, what's up with this guy? I mean, we had these great conversations, but then, he seems like really emotionally withdrawn, and he didn't get my jokes, and he was acting weird. His body language was so weird. I just wasn't so comfortable. I can't even put my finger on why, but I just was really uncomfortable with him so often. And so through analysis, in hindsight, the woman might decide, you know what, this was really promising and I had a good first impression, but there's all these other things, and if I really think about it, I don't think it's not gonna work with this guy. And you might feel that the considered thing would be then to sit down and walk you through why she's making that decision, but again, that's a very difficult thing to do, or almost impossible, because again, as a person with Asperger's, you don't understand how uncomfortable that is for a neurotypical person to break through that social convention of not brutally telling people how you feel about them. Chances are you often do this and you don't think twice about it because you're just being honest. It's just your opinion. Why don't people just honestly say what they feel? But neurotypical people just feel so uncomfortable, and especially women. Let's say she got uncomfortable because looking back at the dates, she just realized that very often you sit very stiff and you don't move your body much. Like even more high functioning people with autism do. And then that maybe you weren't staring, or you weren't like constantly looking down or looking away from her, but you weren't doing this thing where your head was absolutely still, and just sometimes your eyes were. And some people with high functioning autism or Asperger's do that, where their head and body language is a bit rigid, and their eyes go like this without the head following. And usually when your typical people speak, if we look away, the head goes with it. We look like up, we think, the head moves a lot, and then people with Asperger sometimes go, and then just the eyes move. And that can have like this robot demeanor, which you can't, it can be extremely unsettling yeah, because it seems really weird. So that's like one little thing that could be happening. You know, this rigid body language that usually where neurotypical people, if they feel drawn to somebody, they automatically lean in, but then they also hang back a bit to give the person space. You know, you might be like too intense, always leaning forward, always staring, or you might be like, you know, just looking away still a lot and just talking to yourself, and then she might interpret that as, yeah, he's not really into me, or he's like emotionally withdrawn, he's not emotionally available. And you've probably heard the phrase, us women like guys who are emotionally available. So it can all be these little things, and the thing is, just a neurotypical person would never sit down with somebody, even that they care about, and say, you know, your body language is like, you know, you come across as so creepy, the way you don't, you know, move your head enough, or the way you stare way too much, or the way you do this or that. I would argue, you know, most halfway socially savvy people would never say that, except if they knew, if you had told them you have a neurological condition that affects your body language, that affects reading and projecting facial cues. At that point, you know, if somebody cares about you, would feel free to tell you. Otherwise they never ever would. So yeah, I guess that's an argument for, if you continually fail in your social interactions, maybe it's time to tell people, and hard to give you advice without knowing you, but you know, not in the text of your online dating profile maybe, but you could hint on, yeah, I do have a very, very high function. You could say, like halfway through the first date, for example, well, I am aware that I have a very, very high functioning form of autism, or I have very, very high functioning Asperger's, where I blend in. I really have typically no problem with social interaction, but sometimes I'm still can be a bit you know, unable or not able as well to read the facial cues or subtext, or you know, something like that. Don't put it in a too academic way, but, and you don't have to say, well, oh, by the way, I have autism, or oh, by the way, I have Asperger's syndrome. So yeah, just you can explain it in a way where it's like, I have this highly functioning form of autism or Asperger's, where I might sometimes come across in a slightly strange way, and then please tell me right away if that happens, you know, because you know, then I can address it, and I'm so thankful when people give me that feedback, and I usually don't get it. You can put it like that way, and women really do love to help. We are very aware that usually we are more socially adept than men are, so if a man is very open, and that makes you emotionally available, you know, that is where you become vulnerable, where you tell her something about you, where maybe you tell about the past, that sometimes you had you know, some difficulty connecting, and that this is maybe why you haven't dated much, why you come across as somebody who's maybe on their, you know, fifth first date, or only second first date, and you're in your 30s or something. So again, I don't know your level of where you are on the spectrum, but that could be a really a good thing to do, if you, especially if you constantly get ghosted and women drop off the face of the earth after meeting you, and you wonder what's going on. Yeah, so that's in the situation where you get ghosted during the getting to know you phase. And I get a little bit later on, if you get ghosted, what you could try to write to her, just one letter, no more, where you could try to get her to tell you what happened from her perspective, under the condition that this is one time you write to her. If you're lucky, she'll respond, and you will respect that then to never ever contact her and try to continue the conversation, but this is just this one time interchange where we might find out. So I talk about this a bit later. But anyway, so we talked about the getting to know you that suddenly ends, and that you might get ghosted simply because yeah, there were a lot of great things, but there were maybe some little things, maybe just body, just intuition things, body language things, tone of voice that turned her off and decided that she feels she can't build that connection with you. So that's that situation. And of course it can happen, and I get into this also later, that you friended her on Facebook, or maybe after 1-2 days she decided to scroll back on your Facebook or Twitter, and then she found stuff where she went like, yeah, I could never date this guy. So careful with social media. Of course, there's no arguing about this. Oh, I didn't mean it in this way or that way. Why would you be so narrow-minded to just completely drop a person over what they post? But social media can be brutal. And again, as a person with Asperger's, you probably don't have the large picture of how something you post online might come across to everybody out there with all their diverse perspectives, attitudes, sensibilities, etc. Okay, so this is the one situation. And then there's the other situation where you already had some sort of relationship, and maybe she breaks up with you suddenly and ghosts you and doesn't want anything to do with you. And in that case, I would argue that she did tell you what was going on. And that was like, in all my relationship with guys with Asperger's, relationship progresses, you even have a lot of fun together often, but then there's this thing where you're dying on the vine, even after many, many dates and being together and maybe even being intimate, you don't have these emotional conversations that us women like to have. And some women, just for them it's a must that at least you have these phone conversations till late into the night with their boyfriend, where they talk about everything. And some women, if they don't get that after 1, 2, 3 dates, then they might just drop you just for that, if they feel you don't talk enough on the phone or whatever. Now, I'm not even a phone person that much, but I do need eventually conversations, good conversation about life, connecting about emotional things, and then conversations that go on for more than 5 minutes or less. And that's often where Aspies fail, because they can maybe talk about their special interests for half an hour, but to just talk about their lives, talk about just how they became the person that they are, talk on an emotional level. That's often like impossible with a guy with Asperger's. I mean, you disclose things about yourself, you talk about your childhood, and the guy will give you little to nothing back. And if he says something, it'll be just very surface information about his background. And of course, it gets made worse because a lot of guys with Asperger's try to hide that they were bullied for years. They try to hide that they were, just not dating or having any contact with women for years, that they were a virgin until age such and such. So they feel ashamed about that, so they try to hide it. So they try to avoid all these situations or conversations about their past. And that just does not work long into a relationship with a normal woman. I mean, we have this thing where we want to deeply emotionally connect with a guy. It's almost a prerogative to be intimate, and because we just want. If we don't have that, if there seems like there's always this distance where we can't quite figure him out, he doesn't want to talk about himself. Doesn't matter how many fun dates you go to, how fun stuff you do, all the great things you do in your woodwork shop, or how you whatever, plant this aquarium or take some trip to some museums you're both interested in. Doesn't matter, all this other stuff, even physical intimacy, doesn't matter if these emotional conversations aren't there. Then the woman will be probably pretty distressed and feel this relationship is not working, even if it's working on all other levels. And that can be really, really disappointing and disturbing, and you just try to get this going again and again, and the guy is just not responsive to that, and even tries to avoid those conversations or cuts them short. It's like very, and again, I'm just explaining how it feels to a neurotypical woman. And again, if you're not telling her that you have Asperger's, that you have challenges there, then she can't even try to help you through that or work through it in the relationship. If you don't make it a thing where she knows it, she'll just simply interpret it from a neurotypical point of view, which is that this guy is emotionally shut off. He doesn't want to disclose things from his past. He doesn't trust her. He doesn't want the kind of relationship with these long talks like she wants. He just wants to hang out, go on fun dates, and have sex. So, and what happens then is, chances are she tries to have those conversations, and maybe, if it sounds familiar, I mean, she might even be crying and saying, you know what, I feel like we don't talk, or I feel like, you're not telling me really what's going on with you, or, very often I try to talk with you and you just say hardly a word or two, and just want to go back to watching your show, or going to your video gaming, and she might be crying, might be really distressed. And then, of course, as an Asperger, you might shut down. You can't handle it. You hardly respond to that. Barely mumble some stuff, and then that makes her feel even worse. That you don't, when she's in so much distress and she's saying point blank what bothers her so much, and you're not even responding to that. And then, what often happens is, if she breaks down crying, says these things, then maybe the next day she thinks of all your good sides and how much she's invested in this relationship. You get along so great a lot of the times, and she might say something like, I have PMS, or sorry about yesterday, I just got too emotional. And then Asperger guys take that literal. They go like, oh yeah, so if she's like crying and telling me she can't talk with me, and that she's not just feeling that I'm not emotionally available enough, then that's just when she has her period, and then she later apologizes and we cruise on. But that's just absolutely, if a woman is crying and telling you these things, that the relationship has problems, that is when she's telling you the problem. That is when she's basically breaking up with you, or letting you know that this relationship is not working for you. So that if you don't respond then, or if you don't think it over and then pick up that conversation and tell her about you, tell her that you have Asperger syndrome, that you have challenges there, and that you need help to work that through, because you are very empathetic, you try to understand her, you're just a bit slower possibly with that. If you don't do this, if you just try to sweep that under the rug and then just go back to the fun stuff of the relationship and think that it's working, it's not. And then she might, it might happen that she just just breaks up with you and then ghosts you, because it is very painful to end a relationship that you had high hopes for. And she tried to explain it to you, possibly several times, what was not working in the relationship. She doesn't want to have this one more time where she's crying in front of you and opening emotionally up again, and you shutting off and not responding to that. It's just extremely painful. So that's what I sometimes think about when you read these, threads where people say, this person, she broke up with me over text. Can you believe it? Oh, what a bitch. How inhumane, and how, God, she's like a psychopath. Who does that? Having a great relationship and then breaking off over text. And I typically go to myself, there's more to that story, I bet. She probably tried several times these emotional conversations where she explained to him why the relationship wasn't working, and every time he just did not respond, did not even appear to try to see her point of view, and shut her off. And then what do you do as a woman? Do you try for the sixth time to sit down and tell him, yeah, I'm just emotionally dying on the vine in this relationship, and please talk more with me, or please, I feel that our conversations are always just like almost like business-like, or they just end after a few minutes, unless it's about your Doctor Who or astronomy or woodworking or tomato plants or whatever. She already had this discussion with you many times or several times, and you never responded. And there comes a point where you just can't break. The only thing is like to then say, yeah, it's not working for me, the relationship is over. And it's very hard to do that in person. I mean, what do? You go to a guy's house, sit down on the sofa, say, yeah, this relationship is over, and then leave. It can be less awkward and better for everybody involved to then just text that and then trust that the other person goes back and says like, yeah, you know what, things have not been going well. She did cry and she was unhappy, and yeah, so but then people, of course people always get upset if other people break up with them, so it's very easy for them to pin their anger on, oh, she just texted me that it's over, how dare she. You don't break up with somebody over text, and then they don't see that she did really try to do it in other ways, and each of these breakup conversations led nowhere. So so she just does it the straight, logical, impersonal way. So yeah. So in other words, if a woman seems really friendly and nice, and you're starting to fall in love, or you're already in love, and then she breaks it off, no, she didn't lead you on. There was really something, but she was also really, really unhappy in the relationship. And again, there is not the option to just be friends, to break it off and then just be friends. You might feel that would be an option, but really think it through. If you're attracted to the girl, if you're really charmed by her, really want to be with her in a relationship, this switching from a dating situation or relationship to just being friends like that, it just doesn't work. So that's why a woman would just break it off entirely. And one situation that I haven't mentioned yet is that if you went back and you're absolutely sure that there was nothing, that the relationship was like really going well, and she was never crying, she never gave any signs, as hard as you can think, that the relationship was off, and you were getting each other really well, even including humor and banter, etc. Then there's still that other option, which is maybe you friended her on Facebook, and then after 1, 2, 3 dates, she decided, well, it's getting really maybe possibly serious with this guy, so let me, and then she gets so interested in you that she starts browsing back on your Facebook or Twitter till the beginning of time. And it can happen that she found something there where it went from, yeah, I could totally see myself with this guy, to, oh my god, I just completely pegged him wrong. This will never work. And that's the dangerous thing about social media. I mean, that wasn't even an issue 20 years ago. Now it is an issue. And you might feel, oh, that's not fair. Something I posted, she doesn't even know the context or whatever. It doesn't matter. If you post something that could come across wrong to a potential date, employer, or whatever, just don't post it. Or you have to add all the explanations to it. Otherwise, it's just out there, and somebody might look at it and go, why did he post this? You know, it could be, let's say, she's really into you, dates are going well, you friend her, and eventually she browses back on your Facebook and sees that, like, you know, a year ago you did this funny prank where you mooned strangers, you know, with your naked butt through a car window. She might see that, be horrified, and go like, I'm not going to date this guy. He did this just a year ago, or a few months ago. No way will say, yeah, this is like, I'm just not going to have anything more to do with this guy. And you know, you might feel, and she will not tell you this because, you know, again, women, especially if it's like this getting to know you phase, she doesn't owe you arguing over that. You know, she saw this, she decided she doesn't want to date a guy who did this in his recent past, and she's just gonna break it off, and you just have to live with that. You know, it's getting to know you, it's no commitment. You go on dates with people. It might feel like a commitment on your part if you were really getting into her, that she's not going to break it off suddenly with no explanation, but that can happen, and it's perfectly valid. For all the reasons that I mentioned, that the risk for a woman to explain and then hurt the guy with her reasons carries just a million times more risk for her than not giving an explanation. Yeah, so, and you might feel, yeah, this sounds so unfair because this was like, oh, this was on a trip with buddies and I was a bit drunk, and yeah, why didn't she just tell me that this was the issue? But yeah, again, if you posted something that you feel is not really you, is not representative of you, it's just something funny or absurd or whatever that happened, you know, then just don't post it. You know, easy as that. And I think a lot of people on Facebook don't get that, and they don't get that. That's a dangerous thing, and especially with Asperger's too. And even neurotypical people have problems because, you know, there used to be not this channel where you post something and all your friends, all your acquaintances, all your former co-workers or whatever could see it in an instant what you post. And it's hard enough if you're talking with 2-3 people to really think through that what you're about to say, how that would come across, because you have to really put yourself into their shoes. And of course that's something that people with Asperger's can't do. They just say what's on their mind, and they have a hard time imagining how does that come across. Whereas for neurotypical people, that's often what we first quickly scan through before we say something. Okay, how could this person take this? How could this person take this? You know, having this emotional, vivid image of Jeannie, how would she feel about if I tell her the story where I mooned people through a car window, you know? And we have this sense where we can tell how somebody would probably react to something. So it's hard even with 2-3 people, but then with this Facebook and electronic communication, we have now this thing where you can post something, and it's impossible to think through how this comes across to all your Facebook friends on an individual basis. And this is why, you know, I think somebody with Asperger's, it's almost, I would say, yeah, nobody has to be on social media, or if you have a social media account, just post the bare minimum on there, you know, just not even like links to political articles or stuff you might find funny because it might not be funny to a lot of other people. Maybe the occasional picture with your dog or cat in the park, and then, you know, this one picture of you with a birthday cake, or, you know, just absolutely safe entries that show that you are out there, you have a life, or you know, but, you know, just putting yourself out there is hard enough for a neurotypical person on social media. And for, again, maybe time to play it safe, especially if you're out there dating. And never post anything publicly. I would say, you know, even if you're neurotypical, I would just not do it. Why do this unless you're actively building a social media account? And, you know, of course that's kind of hypocritical because I'm doing this here, talking publicly about my dating life and stuff, but I'm not associating my name, and yeah, valid point though. Okay. Oh, and Facebook has this feature where you can actually go privacy checkup. You can type in somebody's name. How does my timeline look from another person's perspective? So do that before you go on that first date or after the first date, because you can find her on Facebook, maybe not friend her yet, type in her name, and then type in her name on that feature, and then you see what she would see on your timeline. Maybe, like the profile picture folder is often public, all public pictures. So if you ever had a profile picture that is inappropriate, that's probably public, and she'll see that, even if she's not your Facebook friend, and similar stuff like that. So careful with social media accounts. I'll probably make a whole nother video just about all this online dating and social media, etc. But okay, so this is my super long rant, and I'm going to wrap this up here. Most important thing to remember is, yes, dating is extremely different from the perspective of a man versus a woman. Women tend to have these experiences that are extremely painful with guys who seemed nice, who seemed normal, and then turn on them when you give them reasons why you reject the guy. And the reason why you're so upset about the ghosting is you would just be upset if she gives you a reason. It's an illusion to think, oh, if you had just an explanation of what happened, you would be completely fine with it. And I think it's easy to get that illusion where you go like, well, if the woman would only tell me, then I would have peace of mind. But yeah, so again, blame it on your other male brethren, that there's like a lot of bad eggs out there that scare women, and men are a lot more physically powerful and have the testosterone coursing through their veins, where they have more aggressive behavior, and every woman has those stories with creeps and stuff. So give women a break there. No, she cannot tell from your behavior that you would never do this. That's the most important thing. I want to drum up a little bit understanding that a woman does that. No, that does not mean that she's like super mean and led you on and it is a bad person. She's probably broken up and really disappointed, but yeah, she absolutely does not want anything to do with you. She's 100% sure she doesn't want to pursue the relationship. So your only chance is to write that letter where you could say something like, hey Jeannie, I understand that you decided not to pursue this relationship or dating with me. One thing I haven't told you is I have highly functioning Asperger syndrome, which is a condition that while I blend in socially, it can make it really hard for me to pick up on cues or read between the lines of what a person is saying. And even though it maybe appeared like I was completely normal, I've struggled with social interaction for most of my life. And I completely respect that you decided not to pursue anything, but it would be extremely helpful for me to know what happened so I can do better in future relationships or with future dating. So in case you find it in yourself that you could tell me why you decided that you don't want to continue going out with me, then I would be so thankful if you write back and tell me your reasons. And I promise 100%, no matter what you write, you will never hear from me again. If you ever want to revive the relationship or just want to pursue friendship, I'm here. But no matter what you write, unless you ask me for a response, I will 100% respect that you don't want anything to do with me further, and just use what you write in my future relationships. So write something like that. I was probably way too wordy there, maybe a bit too, write something like that and stress, really, really bring across that whatever she writes back, you will not respond to it. And you have to know yourself. If you know that whatever, if she writes back, that you will argue with that you will be tempted to even respond thank you, or that you will be defensive and explain whatever, or tell her how she got the all wrong impression about you. If you feel that there's a chance that this will happen, just don't do it. Some people are, I think, just not able to get a letter that tells them the reason for a breakup and then not respond to it if they are in love with the person or deeply care about the person. But that has to be the rule. If you send that letter and she does you the favor of responding for your benefit, you just have to stick to that promise that you do not answer and that you respect what her decision. She decided she wants nothing to do with you, so stay away from her. If you go that route, that has to be absolutely clear to yourself, and don't ruin that avenue again. I mean, guys only ruin women a lot where they just act very aggressive and emotional if a woman is trying to be honest with them. So a lot of women end up not saying honest things, giving feedback, being completely open why they break up with a guy. So you would make it even a million times worse for women if you started doing this thing where you ask for explanations, swear you won't contact them, and then go ahead and contact them. And then she will not even, next time she'll not even do that for a guy. And that's pretty much the only advice I can give. I hope you got something from this. Again, ghosting, very painful, super, super painful. We all react different ways. People either internalize their pain, where they go like, oh, I'm just the worst at social interaction. I completely suck. Oh, she must completely hate me. I completely failed. I'll always fail. Dating will never work for me. And then they internalize and make it way too extreme. And it turns into extreme depression. And some people externalize. They go like, oh, this woman, she completely sucks. She led me on and she did this. Oh my God, that is so cruel, to just completely stop contact with somebody. Yeah, we had a few discussions where things were a bit off and maybe she was crying a bit, but she could have given me the benefit of sitting one more time down and explaining to me why she's breaking up with me. Instead, she's doing this cruel thing and she's blocking me everywhere. What kind of behavior is that with somebody that you kissed and had a great time with, and blah blah blah. So that's like this externalizing behavior where you turn your grief into anger towards the other person, and that's just not a good thing to do. So alright, so I leave it at that. Hope some of this was helpful to you, and just see dating from the perspective of a woman, how difficult it is for us to. And I know a lot of guys, they go, no, you women have it so easy because you can pick the guys that you want and you have all the power, and it's not easy. It's as difficult as it is for men. I know that doesn't sound probably very rational or whatever to you, but it really is. And always painful to have these dating situations not work out. So just learn for yourself what you can from that experience and move on, and know that there will be other relationships for you, other women that you'll interact with, and just think about what you can do better next time. And maybe it's just a matter of practice, especially if you're younger and you're watching this with Asperger's. People get so much more socially savvy over time, and for some people it takes years or a decade or two. But if you really work on it, read some books about body language, read about some books about relationships, read some books about dating. You know, even that you're watching something like my channel means that you are doing your research, and you'll get better at it, and things will start working out better for you. So just trust in that. You know, keep at it. Everybody wants that relationship, wants to be loved, and you're a wonderful guy. You know, because you know, being an Asperger comes with a lot of these great traits that women love. So it's just a matter of working through your challenges, and yeah, I get a lot of that in my other videos, and you can check those out if you like. But thanks for listening to my rant. Yeah, thanks for working maybe up a little bit empathy for a woman's perspective on all this, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. All right, bye.